Well, hi everybody, and thanks for joining us. My name's Christian McNeill, and I'm here with my co-author, Barbara Sarah Smith, and this is one of a series of webinars that we've been running over the last 16 or 17 months, which are based on our book, Addiction, One Cause, One Solution. I see I'm holding up a proof copy with the title slightly obliterated. But anyway, I'm sure you remember the name. So yes, we're drawing these Sunday night webinars, which have been taking place on the first Sunday of the month. We're drawing them to the close, and there will probably be two after this month. And we propose to offer a couple of different possibilities for anybody who's wanting to have a bit of a deeper dive into the application of the inside out understanding, or how the inside out understanding relates to addiction. But we'll say more about that in future calls, and we'll also post in the Facebook group that accompanies this series. So tonight, we've combined a couple of chapters. The first one is about forgiveness and resentment, and the second one's about presence. And Barbara's going to kick off the discussion on those tonight. So, Barbara, over to you.
Okay. Thanks, Christian. And we just to say briefly, we've really enjoyed these calls with everyone. It's been a wonderful way to stay connected and to dig a little bit into the book during the pandemic. But it seems like we're just about done. So we're really excited about seeing where this goes from here, and we'll look forward to hearing from all of you about that as well. So I'm going to be talking on this subject, one of my favorite subjects actually, since learning this understanding, which is on forgiveness and resentment. And I would have to say that, in the book we talk a lot about the fact that there's a lot of talk, and certainly in the psychotherapy field and in the recovery field, about resentments and forgiveness, and how when you walk around with a lot of resentment, it's like taking poison and hoping the other person will die. It's so toxic to us, and yet it doesn't really serve any purpose to really solve an issue and to help the person who was the perpetrator of whatever perceived wrongs, see themselves or the situation any more clearly. It just really makes you sick. That, to me, this understanding where our feelings are actually coming from has so completely shifted the way that I think about that topic and how it impacts our well-being. Early on in my journey with sharing this in the addiction community, I heard Greg Suki one time say, that this understanding really goes beyond our idea of forgiveness, and that what it does is it really levels the playing field. And for me, that was such a powerful statement, that essentially we are all really doing the best we can, truly, absolutely doing the best we can with the understanding that we have, or the thinking that we have at our level of understanding, or at our level of consciousness. And when we see that there's really, we're all doing that. The people who are perpetrating these perceived hurts or the abuse or whatever, what they see at their level of understanding makes absolute sense to them. It feels like truth to them, and they can't see. People often think of denial as an unwillingness to see, but it really is that you can't see. You can't see, and it sounds really simple, but you can't see what you don't see. And so that we can't, we just see what we see at the point that we see it. To even bring up the issue of forgiveness would say, well, I am at this level and I'm going to, deign to give you my absolution, if you will, for what you did. And what this understanding does, I think, is to really level the playing field and to say, I understand that you don't see it, or perhaps you didn't see it then, just the way I haven't seen so much in my life that I thought I saw. I thought I saw clearly at the time, but I didn't see. And that, I think, opens up our hearts in ways that we are able to move beyond it and to not let it make us sick anymore. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get angry or that you aren't going to set limits or you aren't going to choose to not particularly spend time with someone or to let your children be around that person or whatever choices you make about that behavior. But it really does mean that I think you grow in compassion, you grow in understanding, you grow in a sense of peace and acceptance that again is a real balm for your soul, not necessarily, and I think that and then as you start to soften with those edges of really understanding that the nature of unconscious thought and how all behavior is driven by that, again, we just are able to move beyond these things and see it. And you've probably met people in your life who just don't harbor resentments, and yet I know people who, I had a family member recently who I would have to say the outside in misunderstanding really killed her. It really killed her. She was so filled with resentment about her perceived slights in life that it dragged her down to some dark, dark places. And she was never able to see the truth of that, that it was two imperfect people doing the best they could to help her see, to raise a child. Or I saw the other day that when you're a child, you don't realize that you've got two parents who are children essentially trying to figure it out as well. To have that kind of perspective and that compassion and understanding for where people are, I think is a tremendous gift for all involved, whether or not the behavior ever changes. So I don't know if you want to jump in there, Christian, or
Yeah, yeah, I'd love to. I thought I might pick up on what you used the expression perceived slights, and on first hearing that, it kind of sums up what I thought resentments were about. I mean, it's embarrassing how long it really took me to understand what resentment means, or what the term's describing in the recovery world, because I really thought it was all about people who took ridiculous sort of sulks and about absolutely nothing, tiny sort of slights or indiscretions or even misunderstandings, and that they perceived as huge transgressions. Um, and it was actually our mutual mentor, the Keith Blevins, who said something really. And he said it's hurt. He talked about his own experience of feeling hurt and finding it difficult to let go of. And I thought, oh, that I get, because I didn't identify with the other. I thought I don't get bent out of shape about the small stuff. That wasn't my problem in life. There were many. That wasn't one of them, or it seemed like there were many. Um, but I understood the justified hurt, as it seemed. That was, and I think on first hearing that expression, perceived slights, it sounds as though there's nothing there, but it is in fact a real truism, because every hurt, no matter how justified it seems, is actually a perception. That whatever the behavior is by another person, that behavior has no power to control my mind, and it's what I attach, the meaning I attach to that behavior, that creates the resentment or whatever other feeling that I have about it. Or simple neutrality. It's that is being generated within, albeit automatically and unwittingly. So it was really helpful for me to see that what the inside out understanding offered was a simple explanation of where the hurt came from and how to get beyond it. That it wasn't inevitable. I mean, it feels inevitable. Somebody does something that, say, touches one of my hot buttons, allegedly, and I instantly feel, whatever, about that person. But through my initial insights into this work, I saw that that's never what's actually going on. The creation of resentment, hurt, or anything else is my response to it, and there's the so then there's the opportunity to see again, and to just to release whatever feeling has been created, to not buy into it, to not invest in it, to not take it so seriously. And and what I also like about this is that I certainly get that it's true that each of us is doing the best we can. And that became very real for me with this work, because it was a phrase I'd often heard: each of us is doing the best we can with, what we know in the moment. But it seemed it seemed like, just sort of lip service. That didn't seem like a truth. And um stumbling across the principles changed that. But even in situations where somebody intends ill, that that intention of ill will undoubtedly makes some kind of sense to them in the moment. But even if they intend ill, if they intend to hurt or undermine somebody else, the great thing is that the point of power is within, that even there's the opportunity to not buy into it, to not take it on, or if I have bought into it in the first place, to allow that to dissolve, to remind myself that their action is one thing and my response is something completely different. So for me, this has been a tremendous freedom. And as I go deeper, and as fresh insights occur, that very thing that you described, Barbara, of an opening of my heart has occurred. And I think I can say at this moment in time, maybe it'll be maybe I shouldn't, because it might be different tomorrow, but I think I can say at this time, there's nobody in my world that I have any kind of resentment or ill will. I'm not harboring anything. I'm not fearful of anybody. I don't feel there's unfinished business on my side. And something could pop up, some, a new, a fresh memory or something like that. But it. That is the case most of the time now, and I don't feel the victim of anybody. And I certainly did feel the victim of various people at different points before I came to understand how we actually operate. And the so the whole thing about forgiveness, as you say, just sort of flies off. It's more understanding than forgiveness, isn't? And an observation of people, it, because I can observe that people are acting in a way that's kind of inevitable to them, given that both what they believe in that moment, and also whether or not they have any insight into their own functioning. If they have any insight into the inside out understanding, it just becomes, from my point of view, looking at them, it becomes much more neutral. And compassion is the thing that's to the fore. Compassion's to the fore. Um, and I've been reflecting on. I'm doing a sharing it, you know, to some people in the recovery world, and um, the topic I think I'm going to share on is about another phrase that's used widely in recovery is about loving everyone in recovery. And it was another thing that I didn't understand, because I thought, well, that's certainly not true of me. I mean, I actually can't stand that guy, for example, or so and so when he opens his mouth. I can more or less know what he's going to say, and I feel like shooting myself because I can't bear to sit through it again. And I would have all these sort of not liking people, and certainly not loving them. But I've come to see that the love that's been spoken about here, that I think Sid was pointing to, isn't about, you know, deep affection or even necessarily wanting to hang out with the person, but it's the capacity to be present, which is the other topic that we were going to talk about today. That the willingness to be present and to relate to the person with kindness and authenticity and respect. And I thought, I can do that. That's, you know, I can't make myself adore or seek out the company of. I can't force that change, but I certainly, you know, can be present, be authentic, be respectful, and be open-hearted with people. And it seems to me that that's certainly, as I see it in the moment, that's what's meant by loving your neighbor as yourself. You know, that those things are possible, which is a very reassuring aspect of the principles. Everything about the principles points me to, yeah, or points me back to, yes, I can do that. I can show up and be me. I can share what I see or what seems relevant to me, and it's okay if it doesn't flow sometimes. It's okay if I make mistakes. It's okay if I stumble over my words. That I can do that. And um it's very doable. It's not out there. It's not peace of mind 100 years from now when you've completed all sorts of stuff. That this is something that's available to us here now, um, by simply being being present, being here now, showing up as we are. And I think that's enough out of me for now.
I was just going to say about the other piece of this that I find is just acceptance, you
Mm.
know, just accepting things the way they are. I remember when I used to harbor a lot of resentments and really be very outside in. Some people don't suffer from the outside in misunderstanding as much as I did, but I really did. I harbored and carried around a lot of really hypersensitive feelings about people who had, you know, that I didn't like or who I thought had done me wrong. And, you know, I remember someone saying to me, a sort of spiritual friend saying to me, well, that's just so and so being so and so, you know, and I just wanted to punch her lights out. So it's like, oh, stop that, you know. It's like, I don't want to hear that, you know. And now I just really have that acceptance. You know, I look at someone, even who is behaving just awfully, and I think, wow, you know, I just feel my heart open, you know, and just this total acceptance. Like, boy, you just don't really get it. I mean, you know, I have blind spots the size of Chicago. I can't believe it. You know, I mean, every once in a while, it's like, how did I not see this before? So I just, having had that experience myself and waking up myself to seeing the way my thinking was running my life, unbeknownst to me, really absolutely out of my field of vision. Once I saw that for myself, the acceptance that I that I was able to really truly embrace of so and so just being so and so was remarkable. And the freedom that goes along with that, you know, the softer, kinder. It doesn't mean I'm always soft and kind, because I don't think anybody is. I can be very, very grouchy about my neighbor when he runs his lawnmower for too long or whatever. But I know where it's coming from now, and I've experienced that, and I really, so I just find that I am able to look at people in a much more compassionate and accepting way that just really makes life so much easier and so much more pleasant.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm.
And it really does come down to, that it is what it is. I mean, it is and only will be what it is. And that, sort of ties us into the present moment. It allows us to clear our minds from all of this stuff all these misunderstandings and projections and recollections that we carry around, and that just can be so toxic to us, and really skew our vision in ways that, it's almost like looking at the world in a fun house. Everything is just twisted. But the clarity that comes with this, and the centering of really experiencing what it feels like to drop into this present moment, is so very powerful. You know, and it may just be for moments, for glimpses. I just arrived here at our other home in the Azores, and last night, just going and sitting by the water and looking at the color of the water and I was with a friend who's lived here her whole life, and looking at the rocks and the color of the rocks where they've taken off these limpets, that are sort of like a snail, and just really taking in every detail of the world around me, is such a gift when all this other stuff is taken off of our mind. Um, we just don't have it all clouded with the outside in misunderstanding, and this sort of keeping score or keeping track or whatever. Just allows us to just be with what is. And at that point, I think what you begin to notice in people too is, oh, well, they're not all bad. I mean, you've heard that saying, well, I guess they're not all bad. And you start to bring into focus anything that you look at with clear eyes. You start to see things that just never was there, never within your field of vision before, when you had all this other stuff on your mind.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, something that you said made me think of my relationship with a family member who I had a lot of resentment towards, and because I had that, and this person certainly behaved in a way that I wouldn't want to behave, so, because I think that's part of what's great about the understanding is nobody's saying, on the one hand, we're saying everything that people do is understandable, but it's not kind of pouring pink paint over it. It's not saying, yeah, that was wonderful, or anything like that. You can say that you can, that it, principles deals with reality and how it is. And anyway, so and this person, it wasn't just historically. There was some person who was kind of undermining, and I now understand that comes from insecurity. Only someone who feels insecure or less than feels any need to kind of undermine other people. But what I began to see, and in fact, this person died, but what I began to see was that I could never be present in their company. I did not allow myself to be present in their company. It wasn't, conscious or deliberate, but that was how it was, because I was nursing their resentment, and in my mind, protecting against further injury. And I saw at one point, oh, that lack of presence in my part, that lack of authenticity, that lack of sharing who I was, also impacted the relationship. Now, I could rationalize my lacks, if you like, as well, who wouldn't behave like that if you'd been on the receiving end? But nevertheless, in the totality, I saw, yeah, I contributed to the fact that we were never able to, reach a closeness, and there was a lack of honesty and connection in the relationship. It wasn't all one way, and at the same time, just to see my own innocence in that, I couldn't do what I hadn't yet learned to do. I couldn't understand what I hadn't yet insightfully seen. But it's that sort of dual thing of both seeing my part in how that all played out and seeing my innocence. And the more I'm able to, it kind of works both ways. The more I'm able to let myself off the hook, the more I can let other people, and vice versa. When I see this, the innocence of others, then it's an invitation to see my own innocence. And because even that self condemnation and shame and self hatred are not helpful. They're not helpful. They don't feel good, and they're not the truth. They're not telling us something true about ourselves. They only occur when we're believing some made up story of inferiority or insecurity.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, maybe we want to turn off the recording and hear from some of the others. And we'd love to hear what you have to say.
Okay, I'm just going to end the recording now. Thanks, Barbara. Thank you.